Dear friends, now I'd like to sing a song that is new to some of us. It's All in My Heart. The sun, it shines. So in this song we can get in touch with all of the elements around us and the plants, the animals, the people around us, and feel the spaciousness in our heart as we grow the space of our heart to embrace everyone around us, all beings around us. We can really cultivate that feeling. Everything has a space in my heart.
The sun is shining. And as usual, before we start our presentation, I would like to invite everybody to just sit comfortably and we would like to welcome the three sounds of the bell, so all of us can breathe together. And please invite our minds back to our body in the here and now. You are also very welcome to offer yourself a smile, gentle smile. Thank you very much for your attention. And tonight the presentations, I'll be accompanied by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 friends who will support me in these presentations. So probably I would like to everybody maybe start from me to give a very short introductions. My name is Brother Fakter. I'm a resident here in Bangladesh, Thailand, and a Dharma teacher also. And I'm from Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Dear Thai, dear friends, my name is Jim. I am an American, but I've spent my entire life in Asia from the age of 18. I'm a member of the Mountain Serenity Sangha in the Philippines, and I've been a Plum Village practitioner for 8 years.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, I'm Kumiko from Japan. I have practiced this practice for 4 years. I'm also a teacher and I'm organizing the Educator Sangha.
Dear Terry and dear brother and sister family, my name is Go and I'm Thai and I live between Thailand and Melbourne in Australia. And I've known Plum Village through a friend of mine who's a lecturer at Singapore University. And I've been to Plum Village since the beginning of the year.
Dear Respect Thai, dear beloved community, I am Liu Zhen from China. I read Thai's books several years ago, and last year I made the first retreat to France PV in June 2020 retreat, and later I went there in October for 4 months, and this time is my second time in Thai Plum Village. And I'm happy to be here.
Dear Thai, dear brother and sister, dear family, my name is Sumiko and I'm from Indonesia, not Japan. I get mistaken as that a lot. Anyway, I got to know Plum Village since last year, and this year I started to contribute more to the community, to the Sangha community in my city. So I teach yoga, and we did that as like a mindful movement kind of thing in my city. So I'm glad to be able to be here with everyone here. Thank you.
So please applause for all visitors. So dear Thai, dear Sangha, so tonight the presentation will going to be two parts. The first part is I will give a short introduction about what is the 5 mindfulness trainings. And then the second part will be, I would like all of my friends over here to kind of tell a story related to each mindfulness training. So from my left is the first mindfulness training, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. So I would like just to go very briefly about the 5 mindfulness trainings. If this is your first time to heard about 5 mindfulness training, I hope you can have a deeper understanding about these trainings. And this is what I shared just now. So I'll give a very short presentation, 20 minutes. It's a Plum talk, not a TED talk. So TED talks also 20 minutes, or maybe less than 20. So there's a personal experience sharing later. And I only want to share with you these 3 points. The first one is the background, and the second one is the mindfulness training itself, and the third one is the recommended books. Yeah. Let's try this one. Okay, the background. So maybe the first thing we need to know that the 5 mindfulness training actually come from this term called sila in Sanskrit, and in Chinese we call it jie. And then most of the people they translate into precept or morality. But our teachers have been looking into these precepts or this sila for a very long time. And then he tried to contemplate on these precepts, on this sila. And finally, he came up with a new insight about these precepts. Because nowadays when we talk about precept, then we will think that, oh, you should not do this one, you should not do that one. So it's kind of giving somehow a little bit not very correct way to translate these precepts. That's why our teacher giving a different alternative to this translation. So the traditional one is this 5. So it's very simple, as maybe most of you familiar with it. I will read, for example, the first one is I undertake the training rule to abstain from taking life. So this is like the 5 precepts of the Buddhists. The first one. The second one, abstain from taking what is not given or stealing. The third one is the abstain from sensual misconduct. The fourth is the false speech. And the fifth is the abstain from liquors, wines, or other intoxicants, which are the basis for heedlessness. So this is like a very traditional way of these 5 precepts. And then our teachers, is a really very deep practice of mindfulness, and he thinks that this precept is already been devised by the Buddha so long time ago, probably 2,600 years ago. So you think that maybe we need updated versions. It is very similar when you have an Android phone or iOS. I think think from time to time you need an update probably. And then our precepts or our sila also need to be updated. So our teachers came up with this precept need to be modernized and updated, and also have to be in secular versions, or else it's just limited to the Buddhist community. So this is what his vision is about this precept. And then that's why in the many talks, our teachers always would like to suggest or to recommend that the new versions of the 5 precepts can be a global ethics. So everybody can commit themselves to practice these precepts. And I remember one time he mentioned about the basis of authentic precept is mindfulness. So in order to, for example, the first one, to abstain from killing, you need to give rise to mindfulness so you can abstain or avoid this killing. So to practice these precepts, for sure, we really need this mindfulness training. Mindfulness. This is what we have been practicing for a few days here in our center, Klang Village, Thailand. So this energy of mindfulness can really help you to see how to avoid, how to abstain yourself. That's why our teacher emphasized on practice of mindfulness. And I also remember one time he mentioned about this in Buddhist. We have this what we call the Eight Noble Path. It's divided into 3. The first one is the precepts or the ethics. The second one is the concentration. And the third one is wisdom or insight. So this is like the very core practice of Buddhism. And then he also looked at the 5 powers. You will see there's a 5 points. The first point is the faith. The second is the diligence. The third one is the mindfulness. And the fourth is the concentration and wisdom. So you will see between them, you will see that concentration and insight or wisdom is always preceded by mindfulness. That's why he concluded that the precepts, the ethics, is the mindfulness itself. That's why in Klang Village, if you pay attention closely, the 3 points that are very important to Klang Village is the mindfulness, concentration, and insight. And our teacher drew the wisdom from these 5 powers. And actually, the mindfulness training consists of the practice of mindfulness itself, the first point. And the second point, there's a 4 Noble Truths. And the third one is the 8 Noble Path. So the 4 Noble Truths and the 8 Noble Path. Maybe if you are not very familiar, I will just go very briefly. Yeah. But you see, nowadays, you have a lot of information materials on the internet. So if you would like to know deeper about the 4 Noble Truths or 8 Noble Paths, you are very welcome to ask my friend. It's called Google. You just go on the web, and then you type something 4 Noble Truths, and many things will come up. Because I cannot go deeper into this 4 Noble Truths and 8 Noble Paths, but I will just go very briefly. Make sure you write them down all, because at the end of the retreat we're going to have an exam. I'm just kidding. No exam. If we have exam next year, nobody going to come. Because I'm a student, so every semester I have an exam. I'm a PhD student in Mahachulalongkorn University. So the 4 Noble Truths, I just go very briefly. There's the 4. The first one is the ill being. Yeah. And the second one is the path leading to ill being or the cause. ill-being, or sometimes you can translate into suffering. And the third one is well-being. This is a very, very special translation from our teacher. And the fourth one is the path leading to well-being, or I can call it the Eight Noble Path. So it's related. So the Four Noble Truths related to Eight Noble Path. So what is this Eight Noble Path? Yeah, this is a little bit many things. It's just right view, right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood, diligence, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And very easy to memorize. Yeah. And let's see. So at the beginning, I mentioned this 5 mindfulness training. So you will see. I will compare the old versions and the new versions. The old version is number 1, abstention from killing living being, and our teacher revised into, can you see, reverence for life. And Brother Jim will present, will tell you a story, probably, right? I guess so. And the second one is abstention from theft or stealing. And then he kind of revised into true happiness. Maybe you're just wondering, what is the relationship between stealing and true happiness? Yeah, I also wonder many years. And the third one is the abstention from sexual misconduct, and it's become true love now. This one is more related. True love. You see the first one, okay. The second one, yeah, you will know later. And the third one, yes, very related. And then the fourth one is the abstention from falsehood or telling lies. And it's become a deep listening and loving speech. I think when you listen deeply and with a loving speech, probably you're not going to lie. And the fifth one is the abstention from intoxications. And he revised into nourishment and healing. So this is the training. And let's see one by one. Let's see one by one. I don't know whether you can read it, or I will read it for you. So the first one is a reverence for life. You will see there's okay, let's see, this is not mine, so I'm going to press this button. Okay. So there's a number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So I deliberately put the number. So number 1, 2, 3, 4 is the Four Noble Truths. And then number 4 is the Eight Noble Path. But I'm not going to elaborate about the Eight Noble Paths because this is the whole thing. But if you look carefully, the mindfulness training always starts with so you will see that the number 1 is always start with aware of suffering. So the aware is the mindfulness itself actually. So, and then the second part, it will be the cause. Caused by something something. So the first one is caused by destruction of life. So you can see clearly. So the first one, the second one, and the third one, I am committed to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion, interbeing or interconnectedness, and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. So this is the third one. And then the fourth one is the concrete way, the path. This is what we call the Eight Noble Path. And okay, let me read them all. I am determined not to kill. Okay, this is very related to the traditional one. Not let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to view, in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and in the world. So I would like to ask one of my friends to share his practice about this first mindfulness training.
Dear Thai, dear friends, I'd like to focus a little bit on the last sentence, speaking about violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself or in the world. As brother said, I'm going to share a story. In 1972, I was 18 years old, and I went to Vietnam, and I turned 19 years old in Vietnam, and I was a soldier. I was a medic, what they call the combat medic. And you might be surprised, 19 sounds very young to be in a war, but actually, the average age, the statistic is the average age of an American soldier in the Vietnam War was 19. And there's a thing about war, it's a saying, it probably applied to every war in history. War is something that old men send young people to go fight and die for. And there's the problem. I'm not going to talk about my views on the war. I'm not an expert, I'm not a historian. But I would say that I went in with an open mind. I didn't hate the Vietnamese. As a matter of fact, the American soldiers were cooperating with the South Vietnamese. I didn't hate the Viet Cong. I felt even at a young age that they probably thought they were right, and the South thought that they were right. And I thought it was probably pretty tragic all the way around. Just like America had its own civil war years ago. One strong example that's in my mind, an impression, a seed, is after we had our training, first you go to your training that everyone goes through in the military, your basic training, and then you go to your specialty, which for me was medical. And then you went to Oakland, California. And there was a big warehouse there. The soldiers that were coming back from Vietnam were on one side of the room, and those of us that were going were on the other side of the room. So they would come back, they would debrief, they would deprocess, they would turn in their equipment, and then we would get it. They would get off the plane to Vietnam, we would go to Vietnam. And I have a strong impression to this day, and I'm 66 years old now, but I have this strong impression of the faces of the young guys that were on the left side of the room that were coming back from Vietnam, and those of us that were going. They were only perhaps months or a year or so older than us, but they looked old, and they looked angry, and they looked tired, but they also looked grateful to be home. And they also looked at us with a bit of pity, I guess, or a sense of, you don't know what's coming. I actually went into the military because I had an angry father. And I was trying to escape home for 2 years and make some money. In those days, if you went in the military, you would get money for what they called the GI Bill to go to university. So I had no aspirations to be a soldier. I just wanted to get away from home and get some money for college and make my life when I came home. So I spent 9 months in Vietnam. And I would say that as much as you can say that good came out of the war, I had good experiences. The first seed that was planted was the seed of Buddhism. Because we had translators with us, with the South Vietnamese army, and they were predominantly Buddhist. And because I was a medic, we had more free time in the evenings, and I would sit around with the translators and I would ask them, what do you think of the war? What do you think about the Americans being here? What about when the French were here? And they would share their view on the war. And I saw the wisdom that they had. The second seed that was planted was my love of Asia. Because even though it was a war, I was fascinated with the language and the people and the food and the politics. So after I left Vietnam, I was sent to a military hospital in Japan. And I got out of the military in Japan, and I've spent the rest of my life in Asia. So that seed of Asia was planted in Vietnam. The seed of Buddhism was planted there. As a non-combatant, I never had to shoot at someone. I was shot at. I saw a lot of death. I saw a lot of young people my age that didn't get home. And I saw a lot of Vietnamese that didn't get back to their families. And I saw no sense in all of it. But yet I was kind of proud to be a medic and be able to have a positive impact, as much as you could say there's any positive impact that comes out of a war. The final thing is that somewhere in Vietnam, or somewhere in the world today, there's a 47-year-old Vietnamese woman that I gave birth to. Because at the tail end of before I left, I was working at a military hospital, 93rd Evacuation Hospital, and we used to do ambulance runs. And there was a young woman in labor that didn't make it back to the hospital, so she gave birth in the ambulance. And I wasn't really trained much for that, but it happened. So somewhere in the world, there's a 47-year-old Vietnamese woman. I'd like to meet her one day. And I sometimes wonder if maybe she might have even become a Plum Village nun. That's a bit romantic, right? But if you know anyone that was born in September 1972, 40 kilometers away from Ho Chi Minh, tell her I'd like to meet her. So I know my 8 minutes are about up. I guess what I wanted to say is I didn't have that seed that Plum gives all of us about reverence for life, but I felt it even as a young man, and that's when I was exposed moving from Buddhist country to Buddhist country. I lived and worked in 8 countries around Asia. It just made clear sense to me to become a Buddhist and follow this path. And I think the principles of 5 mindfulness are very clear cut for us and a beautiful way to lead our lives. And the final point I'd like to leave with you is I've never been back to Vietnam since I left in 1972. but I want to go. And there's two friends of mine that I've kept in touch with. We were medics together at the age of 19, and they're in their 60s. One lives in Eugene, Oregon. The other one lives in Gary, Indiana. And they're retired now like me, and I'm trying to persuade them to go back to Vietnam with me and relive a little bit of our experience there. If they agree, I'll go. And if I don't go with that, I'll probably go to a retreat one day. So thank you for letting me tell my story. And I'm very proud and happy to be part of this community. It's kind of full circle for me, right? The way I came to Asia and the way I'm living out the rest of my life in Asia. It's a beautiful process. Thank you, brother.
Please applause for Baraji. Let's listen to one song. So this the first mindfulness training. You can see how different from the traditional one, and you can see how visionary our teacher. You see the need of our modern times. If you only say one sentence, I don't think it really can convey the message of this reverence for life. So in our practice, we contemplate, we read it, and then while we practice mindfulness, and day by day, and then our understanding about this precepts, this mindfulness training, will grow deeper and deeper day by day. I would like to go to the second one. I will help my friends to read it. So the first part is the aware of suffering. So this suffering is really like the central topic of within the Buddhism. But even aware of the suffering, but the title is true happiness. Let's see how this suffering related to happiness. Caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing and oppression. So it's come up, stealing. Okay. Because just now when we compare the traditional versions and the new version, it seems like not very related. And then I'm committed. See, there's always I'm committed to practicing generosity. Okay, generosity. In my thinking, speaking and acting. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others, and I will share my time, energy and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering. That true happiness, true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion. Okay, now you got the answer. So let me repeat once again. True happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion. And that running after wealth, fame, power, sensual pleasure can bring much suffering and despair. I am aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external condition, that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I'm committed to practicing right livelihood. See, this is related to the Eighth Noble Path. You see, that's one of the points, right livelihood. So that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and stop contributing to climate change. So this, sometimes we call it climate crisis or climate change, is really big issues for our currents nowadays. And as a part of the community, mindfulness practice community, we also try our best to look at this climate change. So I would like to invite a sister from Japan. Her name is Komiko, right? Okay, please.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, I'm very honored to be here. My focus of this talk is later part. I'm aware that the happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. As I told you, the first time I visited Plum Village was 4 years ago, and the original reason which brought me here was my students. I was working for high school at the time, which was students had lots of difficulty, not only in academics but also in dealing with their emotions. They sometimes easily punch their friends with a very minor reason. So I was wondering how can I teach them the way of dealing with emotions, and that's how I met the Plum Village. And when I visited the Plum Village, I was very touched by the the presence of brothers and sisters. And when I was told, thank you for being here, I was really deeply touched, and I felt I was fully accepted without any condition. So since then, I have been into Plum Village and this practice. And last September, when I was taking a shower, I felt strange with my right side leg. So that it should be cold water, but my right side leg felt it's hot, it's warm. And I felt it's weird, and a week later, I went to see a local doctor, and I didn't feel any pain, so I didn't expect it to be something serious. But when I see local doctor, he told me there's something in my spinal cord, and I should go to the big university hospital within the day, immediately. And I took taxi, and on the way from the local hospital to the big university hospital, I was crying. And I was thinking about the worst case, what's going on and what would happen. But I have realized negative emotion expanded by the negative thinking. So I stopped and I back to breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay, I'm shocked. And okay, but it's okay. I'm sad. It's okay. So, I just try to stop the negative thinking and just back to breathing. And I said, it's okay. I don't know what will happen. It could be the fatal disease, I don't know, but it's okay. So that's something the Plum Village taught me, accepting anything without a condition. So it could be fatal disease, so I don't know how long I can live, but it's okay, until then I can live happily. So I was thinking about it on the taxi, and I arrived to the big university hospital, and I was told I need to be hospitalized more than 10 days for checking up and for the treatment. A few days later, I was diagnosed as multiple sclerosis. That's kind of disease which my immune system attacked myself, attacked my brain and my nerve system. So my immune system has a wrong perception, so attack myself. So that's why that's happening. And it's not something like you will die in 2 years or 3 years, but it's not curable disease, so it could happen again. And I was told, there's a possibility that nothing happen throughout your life, but there's also possibility you cannot walk in 5 years. And I was shocked, but at the time, I didn't notice I was shocked. I just see other people, and other people looked happier than me, healthier than me. And I thought they don't understand me. They don't understand me. But I just back to myself, and I just observe my feeling and my thinking, and I realized it's actually me who don't understand me. It's me who don't stay with me. So, okay, even anyone else wouldn't understand me, I should stay with me. I should be with me. I should with my emotions. So, back to breathing. Breathing, breathe out. I'm shocked. I'm sad. But it's okay. So I'm feared. I'm scared. But it's okay. So, whatever you are, what kind of emotion you are, I'm stay with you. I told my emotions. And I imagined the living room in my heart, and I invited them, okay, welcome. So my fear, my sadness, okay, you can stay with me. But also I invited the other feelings. I asked myself, is mindfulness there? Yes, I am. Is love there? Yes, I am. Is compassion there? Yes, I am. They answered. And I could invite all of them to my living room in my heart. And I could spend the nice warm time with them. And I did a walking meditation in the hospital. And I did a 5 contemplation before eating every time. And I was thinking, happiness is here now in the bathroom of the hospital. So, I was really happy at that time because the thing I got disease reminded me I'm alive. My heart is beating. I'm breathing. Now I can walk. Maybe there's a possibility I'm not able to walk in 5 years. But now I'm able to walk. How precious it is. And I have realized how much I love to be alive. I didn't know before. And I'm also supported by Sangha, and I could feel the plant village in me when I do the walking meditation, when I do eating meditation. When I eat, I easily can imagine the Sangha members, brothers and sisters. So you are in me. So I wasn't alone. And there's nowhere to go, nothing to do. I could just live happily. I was very happy, and that's a true happiness. I could be very happy without any condition. And I can say I'm happier than I used to be. So I'm not as healthy as I used to be, but now I'm happier because now I know how precious to be alive. And I'm really grateful to the plant village and this practice. And for me, I could prove like this practice really works when I'm really serious situation. So when I have difficulty and suffering, and when it is a critical moment, this practice really helped me a lot. And I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kamiko, for sharing your heartfelt story, especially in the hospital. But most of the people, when they are in the hospital, I don't think they will remember happiness is here and now. She's a really wonderful practitioner. Because sometimes when you are in hospital, you are overwhelmed with the sickness, with pain everywhere. And it's very difficult to come back to your breathing or even just sing a song. But this is really encouraging. And actually we really still can be happy wherever we are, even in the hospital. But I hope nobody think that you are crazy or something. Yeah. But she's very clear at that time, even doing a walking meditation and reading the 5 contemplation before eating. It's very encouraging. Thank you very much once again. And the third one is a very interesting topic about true love. So I have to read all the text. So we will start with the aware of suffering caused by sexual misconduct. I am committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love, and the sexual activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others. I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without true love and a deep long-term commitment made known to my family and friends. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that body and mind are one, I am committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, which are the 4 basic elements of true love, for my greater happiness and the greater happiness of others. Practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future. So I would like to invite our third guest speaker, Kop, to share your story.
Dear Jay and dear family, brother and sister, I would like to tell you about my story. I have been through a relationship with not knowing that sexuality and love are 2 separate things. And I grew up with a single mother who dedicated her life raising her 3 children. And I'm lucky that she's a strong woman. And my dad died when I was young, when I was 9 years old. So I didn't have a father figure, and I didn't see it at home, what the quality of love. I didn't see what the quality of love is all about. In my life, I have had at least about 5 dating relationships, and all started quick, and I jumped into relationship quickly with physical attraction and mental attraction, and it ended up shattered, and in relationship, my self-esteem and my self-respect get smaller and smaller. I didn't have no clue about lust and love, and I thought that they are the same. They were the same thing. And with a man that married. And I felt the impact that had on the wife of that man. Until recently, I started questioning myself about what I've been looking for, what I've been searching for in relationship. And I know that there's like the emptiness inside of me, that longing for attachment, that I lost my father figure. But that shouldn't be the reason that why I jump into relationship and look for like an attachment just to complete myself, to fulfill myself. I found that relationship that I had in the past, it hurts not only me, but it hurts, men that in my life and also others in my life, their family. And until recently that I came to Plum Village, I start seeing that happiness actually, or the fulfillment actually start from within, start from feeling it in your heart, yourself first, not seeking, what I thought that would fulfill me, sexual relationship would fulfill me. I knew that it didn't work, it didn't turn out into that way. And I start seeing that the quality of love is all about. It's about compassion, it's about, deep listening, it's about sharing your own vulnerability, sharing your own pain. Stop being ignorant, stop being arrogant. That's what I've been through in my life. And recently I found, I went into an intensive workshop that 2 months ago that hosted in Bangkok. And I met a person that already dating, and we felt there is something between us. But I knew that he's already dating. And one day he asked me, to have lunch with him, and I had lunch with him. And I realized that I was aware of my sexual energy, my sexual desire and my passion, and deeper intimacy that I want to go into deeper with him. But in the same way, I also asking myself, observing myself, my emotion, my desire, my passion, whether what is it? Is it true love? Is it? I don't think it's true love. It's just an impression because I just seen him. I just saw him 8 days, and I found out that it might be only one persona among many that impressed me, but it doesn't really show up who he is really. Who is he all about? It's just one spectrum in him. And I know that, hey, my nature is to enjoy fantasizing, like Hollywood movies or Disneyland like that, or even pop songs, the pop culture songs that make things disillusion about the consensus reality about life. So I was observing myself, and I was questioning myself. And while we were having, lunch and dinner together, I left the space in between. It's just like an empty space between me and him. That empty, that's nothing there. I told myself that I wouldn't jump into this, and I wouldn't seduce him, and I wouldn't mislead him into something that subtle energy in between, all kind of romantic desire that I want to go into. And luckily, he's a person that's highly aware of himself as well, what's going on. And that night, I felt I left him, and even now, my relationship with him is just a friend. And I felt very proud of myself that I honor, I respect myself, I protect myself, and I protect him, and I protect his girlfriend. And I don't let any episode or scenario that would exploit, sexual exploitation or whatever. And I'm so glad that I choose to honor the higher self of me and to really contemplate or think deeper what true love is. And I'm so glad that, I learned this from and I've seen it from the practice, I've seen it from the songs, I've seen it from the behavior that we were talking about. We had questions before, how to deal with lust, how to deal with sexuality and intimacy. And this love is beyond intimacy. The Paul teach me this lesson is intimacy beyond sexuality. And yes, beyond love beyond.
It's a plus. So in Thai Blam Village, we organize young people retreats. We call it a wake up retreat from 18 to 35. And this time to time we will discuss about this topic, true love, because nowadays young people, young generation from Asia, they have a lot of difficulties, especially facing there's many happening like free sex. So this is the thing that we really need to address. Of course, for Asians, for Westerners sometimes they are more open, but for Asians sometimes it's kind of difficult or maybe taboo to talk about relationships. But this is the real issue of our current generations. We cannot keep hiding them. But we want to find a good way how to deal with that, especially with mindfulness. So thank you once again for your deepest sharing. And I would like to move to the next one, loving speech and deep listening. So my friends from China will share. So aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and inability to listen to others. So there's a very important part, unmindful speech and inability to listen to others. I'm committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and amongst other people, ethnic, religious groups and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, It's a speech, something to do with speech. I'm committed to speak truthfully using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I'm determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and to look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perception and lack of understanding suffering in myself and the person. I will speak and listen in a way that can help myself and the other person to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I'm determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain and not to utter words that can cause divisions or disgrace. I will practice right diligence. See, this is a right diligence. It's a part of Eight Noble Path. To nourish my capacity for understanding love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness. So please, Sister, your time. 8 minutes.
Dear Sangha, I like to share about deep listening and loving speech because I myself benefit quite a lot from it. I grew up with much encouragement from my family, my relatives, and when I have it's too emotional before and very suffer. And I also always have friends there for me, deeply listening to me. That's why I know pretty well how it works. But I don't, that's why I also practice in my life. But I don't do it very well. After I read Thai's teaching and come to Plum Village, my story is with one senior practitioner, and she practiced in Plum Village PV tradition for more than 20 years. And in 21 days retreat, we are in the same family. And in my second time in France, and she is also there to join the 3 months autumn retreat. In 21 days retreat, that is my first time to experience flower watering. And because I'm new there, and because that in that retreat there are only 3 Chinese people, and she is guiding us. She bring us go deeper into PV tradition, and as a deep listening, I love Dharma sharing practice. I always love Dharma sharing practice in PV. Every time I'm so nourished and healed by it. And in autumn retreat, although she practiced in PV for 20 years, but she never joined long retreat. Last year, she decided to give herself this gift to deepen her practice, because rain retreat or autumn retreat in France is the opportunity to go deeper into our practice. That's why she was there, and I was there, because we connected very well, like real family. And in this retreat, she experienced emotional up and downs, because she saw the roots of her suffering more clearly than before. And that's why one night is actually already noble silence. But that moment she really can't bear it anymore. She was in the boundary of burning out. And she came to me and invited me to be there with her. And we're in the tea house, and she can't help starting to cry and talking. And almost 1 hour. In that 1 hour, I know that's the opportunity for me to be really there for her and really practice deeply listening. That's why I don't think anything, any word in that 1 hour, just listening and pass the tissue to her silently. And after that, she getting calmer. And in the end, she said, okay, I'm better. Do you have something to say to me after this? And I practice loving speech and also flower water first. And also help her to see some point in her more clearly, because we were being together very long, very close, because we always, she always invited me to Dharma sharing inside of two. And that's why I know what struck her. And later I just briefly and to talk to her, and she suddenly see, oh, my stuckness is this, and she suddenly feel relieved. And in the next days, she is in the processing of reborn. This reborn is different than before, and she transformed quite a lot. And in the end, and she benefited quite a lot from this autumn retreat, 3 months deep practice. That's why she came back to the PV for another autumn retreat to even go deeper into her practice. Actually, she is a great bodhisattva in my heart. I am not help a lot. I'm just one condition there for her. She herself made her efforts, maybe 95%, even 99%. I'm just, but yeah. And but I have to be honest saying, I practice this prayer with my friends, with my Sangha member, with the people coming to my life. I consciously practice deep listening and loving speech in the flower watering, but I don't practice aware with my family. And yeah, and I also consciously aware. I also have to go deeper into my practice and also do better with my family. And actually, in autumn retreat, my mentor invite me to write down, to contemplate on the quality of my parents, my dad, my mom. And in that week, well, I see so much qualities of my parents. I hope I can practice better with my family, with my relatives, and better in the future. Thank you for listening.
And in this retreat, you are very lucky, all of you are very lucky, because today we have a chance to listen to a talk from our elder sisters, Sister Chung Kong. And then also, she was very compassionate to offer sessions of total relaxation and touching the earth, I believe. And even I did not come, but when I facilitate the Dhamma sharing family, I can see how the members of my Dhamma sharing family, they were so touched by how Sister Chung Kong conveyed the message, especially there's a part that related between son, daughter, and parents, and how the son or the daughter actually is the continuation of their parents. And this is also one of the topics that really like the issues of our nowadays time. And I hope most of us have time to contemplate deeper about our relationship and the continuation of us. And I would like to go for the last mindfulness training, that is nourishment and healing. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I am committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society, by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I'll practice looking deeply into how I consume the 4 kinds of nutriments, namely edible foods, sense impressions, volitions, and consciousness. I'm determined not to gamble, or not to use alcohol, drugs, and other products which contain toxins, such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazines, books, and conversations. I'll practice coming back to the present moment to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me and around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past, nor letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present moment. I am determined not to try to cover up loneliness, anxiety, and other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate into being and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and the earth. So I would like to invite our last friends to share about this journey. Please.
Dear Thai, dear brother and sister, dear family, is everyone still awake? If you're still awake, can you raise your hand? Oh, yeah, not bad. So, I have this favorite biscuit of mine. It's called Digestive, if any of you knows. It's very healthy. It's made of whole wheat, and it's dark chocolate. So I love it very much. And back in my university time, I always bought a packet at least. There's always a packet of this biscuit at my home, in my cupboard, ready anytime. And in a pack, there are around 10 to 12 biscuits. It's a round biscuits, right? So one night, I stay up late, much later than I would usually be. So normally I'll sleep at 9 to 10, but that particular night, I slept at 11-ish. No, I stay up until 11-ish. And I remember this very vividly because that was the first time for me to wanting to eat something that late night. And I reached up to my cupboard, I saw my favorite biscuit, and I was like, okay, I'll have one. And I took one biscuit, and 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, and before I knew it, I finished the whole packet. It's 10 to 12 biscuits on one go, on that night. And I was surprised, I was like, what's going on? Because I wasn't hungry. I just wanted to have 1 pack. And I just wanted to have 1, and it becomes the whole pack. But still, because I love the biscuit, I still bought it and saved it there. I was like, maybe I'll have it, you know, in my tea time or something, right? And the same thing happened again. The same night, not the same night, there was another night where I stayed up late again. I was watching something on my laptop and I was like, I wanted to eat something. And I reached for the same biscuit. And I still remember vividly that as I had my 5th or my 6th biscuit, I started to feel guilty. Because I know I'm not hungry and I know I shouldn't be doing it, but I couldn't stop myself and I finished the whole packet again. And it was very frustrating for me at that time because I was like, it's 11 p.m. I should be sleeping. I should be having my rest, but here I am watching something on my laptop and eating unmindfully at that time, but I wasn't aware of this whole thing called mindful eating. So it wasn't until years later that I realized that it was an eating disorder. So I realized that all those times that I spent eating unmindfully was actually a way for me to avoid feeling. So I don't know why my feeling appeared at 11 p.m. And at that time I didn't know or I didn't want to understand that feeling. So I decided to avoid feeling the emotion by consuming, in this case, consuming my favorite biscuits. And when I realized that, I noticed that the pattern continued. So from consuming my favorite biscuits, the next one is consuming social media. So after that period of eating disorder, and at that time I decided to not stay up late so that, you know, I didn't have that craving at 11 p.m. But the next stage was where, you know, like feeling comes anytime. And when I found it, I did not want to feel it. So I took out my phone and I mindlessly just scrolled on Instagram, right? Like I saw some of you starting to laugh, like you feel it. And it was very automatic for me. Whenever I feel something that I don't want to feel, I took out my phone. I look at social media. And to be honest, it wasn't helping. I wasn't feeling any better. And I was actually feeling worse because as you scroll down social media, you look at people's lives and you realize that people's lives are wonderful. What happened to my life, right? But that was all the game of the mind. And now, as I remember the first time I read the 5 mindfulness training, and I saw the 5th point of this consumption, the unmindful consumption, and I was like, and when I saw the 5th precepts about the unmindful consumption, it struck me that I was doing exactly that. I realized that my eating disorder at that time was because I felt empty. But instead of feeling what should be felt, I felt that I couldn't, or I didn't know how to do it, and I ate. And I filled my belly, and I still feel empty. That's the irony. And it's the same thing with social media. I felt empty, and I was like, or maybe I felt bored, and I didn't want to feel that. I wanted to get out of that feeling, and the easiest way to do that is, at that time, is to take out my phone and just look at other people's lives, get away from whatever feeling that I'm feeling. And the thing is that these two unmindful consumptions that I've been doing is not helping me. It's going nowhere because with my favorite biscuits, now I kind of have a traumatic experience with it. And with social media, it's making me feeling worse. So it's not really solving any of my problem. I mean, I could go on and do another unmindful consumption. I could play games. I could go and just, drink alcohol whenever I feel sad. I could definitely do that, but I know that it's just the same pattern, different consumption, but same pattern. And I no longer wanted to do that. So that was when I read these 5 mindfulness training, the 5th precepts about the mindful consumption, and about how there was a sentence there that really struck me. It was saying about how I would not cover up my loneliness, my fear, or my anxiety in the unmindful consumption. And that was the beginning of how I started to allow myself to sit with the emotion when it arises. And for me, I could feel it back then. I could feel it arising, and I would instantly reject it, reach out for something else, right? Like I wouldn't want to just sit with it. But this time, when I felt the urge to avoid it, when I felt the urge to just open my social media, when I felt the urge to not feel it, I take a breath in, I take a breath out, and I sit, and I see what happened when I feel that feeling that I didn't want to feel, those unpleasant feeling of loneliness or anxiety. For me, it was anxiety. It was a very big anxiety because I was freaking out a lot about the uncertainty in the future. And I think that's why it shows up at night, because I couldn't sleep and that feeling show up. Now I kind of can connect the dots, but at that time, I was not aware of what's going on, and I did not want to understand my emotion. But now, I get these tools to be with me. I get this best friend with me. I get my breath to be with me whenever I feel my emotion rising up. Now I can sit with my anxiety at 11 p.m. and not open my cupboard, not taking out my biscuits. And I can reject my phone when I felt the strongest urge to take it, because it's been my habitual energy for years. But I learned that I have the choice, and that we all do. And I learned to nourish my body. I learned to nourish my mind. And I learned to nourish my soul by coming here, spending all this beautiful time with all of you, eating good food mindfully, and having all this heart-to-heart conversation with the family. And I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Okay, this is applause. So please don't burn night oil. Go to sleep earlier. And it's 9 p.m. So I would just like to very briefly conclude our presentations, and I hope you have time to discuss these 5 mindfulness trainings in your Dharma sharing family. But of course, tomorrow is, according to the schedule, is a lazy day. So please enjoy your laziness. If you are very diligent, and please be lazy. I don't know what time you have to wake up tomorrow, but let's check it out on the schedule board. And I have recommended books, and this is called Mindfulness Survival Kits. And these few days, many people keep reporting that the bookshelf is so crowded. And of course, you like to buy something that memorable or very nice, but this book also very precious if you would like to get one. And I don't know how many languages is available, and you can try your luck. Maybe Chinese or Japanese. English, I believe you have this book. And then at the end of the day before, I think, we will transmit this 5 mindfulness training. So maybe the organizing team will announce about if you would like to commit yourself to practice this mindfulness training, and we will conduct a ceremony to transmit this mindfulness training. And thank you very much. Please once again applause for all of the presenters. And let's listen to 3 sounds of the bells and slowly digest all the story and all the presentations, and aware of our in-breath and out-breath, relax and welcome the sound of the bell.